Welcome back, everybody, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. And as you can see, the inmates are running the asylum today. Andy is off trying to figure out how to bet on a Corn Ferry Tour event with the PGA Tour logo on it with Ryan Noonan. So go over there once we are done here and check that out. And then Noops is not here. I was just told he's not here today. I'm assuming he's standing in line trying to get tickets to the World Series for Game 3, but nevertheless, I'm producer Dan. I am joined by Matt Rooney, who is always here on Tuesday. And as you can see by that absolutely awesome and fire Chicago Bears starter jacket.
The little starter zipper. I love it too.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of clothing. Matt is pretty fired up about his Chicago Bears, who got a massive win. And of all the notes that I've written down, I didn't write down the final score, but it was
33-14, Dan. 33 could have been 40, but we took a knee on like the 2 as time was expiring there.
Bears a lot, Patriots not a lot. Shout out to the Deep Dive DJ Discord. One of the guys in there played Bears to win by 19 to 24 points at like some crazy odds and hit that. So shout out to
What the hell did that pay out?
DJ. I think it was while I'm letting you go on and just talk about how great the Bears are, I'll see if I can find out what the price was. But what are your thoughts after bearing the lead here a little bit too? Like, shout out to Noops, Justin Fields, first touchdown score.
I hit that one thanks to Noops.
Yeah, so shout out to Noops for getting that. He's not even here to crow. Like, the Phillies are in the World Series. The 76ers got their first win of the season. He hit a first touchdown score prop, and he's not here today. So we're going to have to just cheer for him, live vicariously through Noops. It's his world. We're all living in it. But, Matt, what were your thoughts on what you saw from your Chicago Bears?
Man, I'm going to do my best here because I have, since day one of the Bears season as a Bears fan, I've been trying to take the rational approach when they hired the new regime and pretty much not punted on this season, but traded assets, traded Khalil Mack, cleared up cap space for next year and just kind of said this year is going to be about growth and development. Try not to get too low in the bad weeks. I'm going to try to not get too high in the good weeks. But man, that was a really, really fun week or fun night of football. And Justin Fields, all we've really wanted to see from him are the flashes to start happening. The Pittsburgh Monday night game last year was the one that stuck out, but that was kind of it. And going into this year, I know lack of much of an offensive line, lack of weapons around him, but you wanted to see some flashes of him being the best player on the field, of him, play not everybody make. And you saw a couple of those last night. You saw the spin out of a sack fire across the body to Cole Kmet for, a 30-yard gain down the sideline. You saw the quick screen where he pump fake the defensive end, move the arm angle to the sidearm throw and kind of whipped one out to Khalil Herbert for a touchdown. You saw his ability to run the football, and they did a good job of getting him involved in design runs, as well as obviously he's going to have to improvise with that offensive line. But there are a couple moments too where, earlier in the year, people liked using the screenshots with him where he'd scramble for 10 yards, but if you look downfield, he's got a touchdown. There was one play last night, one or two, where he started scrambling, pulled back, found somebody open down the field for 20-yard pickup. So just want to see signs of progress from Justin Fields and the offense and the team. And man, that was a team that's not very good, but is well coached. The second half Bears is becoming a thing. And they played really well. It was a nice positive step for a rebuilding team and a quarterback that, we're hoping is the guy finally.
Yeah. So shout out to Christopher Davis and the Deep Dive DJ in the Discord. He max bet Bears 19 to 24 point margin of victory at 110 to 1. Max bet it for all of $9, but hey, I mean,
still,
who cares?
Leg show. I like that comment. I tweeted it earlier this morning. I was about to feel bad for Mac Jones for getting pulled there, but then I remembered that he intentionally went high spikes into a safety's nuts, so he deserves to get benched and to be booed and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was a wild game. Like, we went into it thinking, Bill Belichick against a young quarterback and a new coaching staff, and it's going to be ugly, and it ended up being very fun. The 10 minutes when Bailey Zappi was Tom Brady part 2 was awesome. And then it turns out that he wasn't. He was a rookie quarterback who didn't play very well. And the Patriots have a quarterback conundrum on their hands because neither one of them are very good. Shout out to, I think the best sign of the Bears having a regime that might actually have an idea of what they're doing is the previous regime never realized that you should just design runs for Justin Fields. And it only took this one about half a season to figure it out. As a Falcons fan, I am lamenting the fact that they could have drafted Justin Fields instead of Kyle Pitts, who they don't use. And Justin Fields in the RPO college ass offense that Arthur Smith is running right now would be awesome, but that's neither here nor there. And then if you look at the NFC right now, there are
it's bad.
The Bears are 3-4. They are one of 7 teams in the NFC that are 3-4. The Rams are 3-3, and there's 2-5 teams who are Carolina and New Orleans, who are in the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are
the division.
So the more things change in the NFL, the more they stay the same, because the only team that you can say is not in the playoff picture right now in the NFC at all, the Detroit Lions. Which is mean. I have nothing against the Lions. I'd like to see them be good. That said, according to DVOA, the Bears have the 4th hardest remaining schedule in the NFL. So still an uphill battle for them to get into the playoffs, but it's very impressive. Nevertheless, on the other side of things, the Pats have the 3rd hardest schedule remaining, according to DVOA. They had 2 big wins. Everything seemed to be trending in the right direction with the Bears at home. It imploded on them. They have the Jets. They go to New York to play the Jets. They have the Colts. They have the bye week. They play the Jets again, and then they're at Minnesota and then Buffalo. So that's a really tough stretch of games with 3 divisional games in there. And then after the Colts, who are really bad and going to be starting a second-year quarterback, but a guy who's never played before, the next 2 worst teams they play are Vegas and Arizona, and those are road games in consecutive weeks. The Raiders,
not the easiest of road games.
Things are a little bit of a mess in New England right now, so it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was a weird. What did you make of the quarterback decisions from them last night, going to Jones and then so quickly going to Zappy? I feel like whoever you started, you probably should have at least given a chance. It feel like Belichick kind of gave in to the crowd a little bit, which is not something that I would expect from him. And I know Zappy gave him that quick spark, but obviously it flamed out pretty quickly. And then it was Jacoby Myers who, after the game, it was kind of saying, I really think we kind of did Mac Jones dirty, and it seemed like you kind of have a little bit of a divide there. Seemed like a very interesting choice. And I know Jones didn't look good early, but, man, you really just pulled the plug on your first-round quarterback real quickly.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Don't know how healthy he is coming back from the injury. I mean, healthy enough.
If he wasn't healthy, he shouldn't have even been on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, they turned the offense over to a weird Matt Patricia hybrid thing. Nothing they did made any sense this offseason. Drew and Andy talked about it a lot in the preseason when they were previewing the Patriots and over and over again, just what the decision making there on offense didn't make any sense. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't really working with Mac Jones, and Zappy had played okay. I don't really mind necessarily trying to ride the hot hand with Zappy if you can. If you think that Mac Jones is the starter and he's struggling, and you have this guy who's played well, taking a shot and seeing what happens, maybe. But
I think you just keep starting Zappy, and you have a quarterback in Mac Jones coming off a high ankle. It's not like he just turned an ankle. He had a high ankle sprain. It's dude, you have an excuse to keep him out for pretty much as long as you want. So ride the hot hand and Zappy, and as soon as that starts to kind of fizzle out, Mac Jones' ankle is healing up. He's going to be back next week. I feel like that would have been the logical reasoning, instead of just bringing him back on Monday Night Football only to pull him 3 series later.
Yeah, but hypothetically, if he's healthy enough to play, wouldn't you rather him be playing in a home game against the Bears instead of a road game against a divisional opponent? I don't know.
Who knows?
The what appears to be the case right now is the old, if you have 2 quarterbacks, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks kind of thing. That's kind of feels like where we are with them. Moving on, because Matt's here, I didn't know if we were going to want to talk about this, and I'm assuming you'll talk about this on Friday with Noops and Andy, but who knows? We just kind of throw it together on Fridays and see what sticks. But the World Series gets underway on Friday in Houston. Phillies, Astros. The Phillies are expected to start Aaron Nola in Game 1. To the surprise of nobody, and the Astros have not announced it, but it would seem to be fairly surprising if it wasn't going to be Justin Verlander. The Phillies are...
FanDuel has Verlander listed, just for the record.
So I looked this morning. And
maybe it's not officially official, but that's who they have listed.
If they have it listed, then that's who it's going to be, and that wouldn't be surprising at all. To win the series, the Phillies are plus 165. The Astros are minus 190. I completely forgot these teams played the final series of the regular season.
It was weird though, because Houston was playing for nothing, and Philly was Philly. I think needed one, or I think
Philly.
Philly clinched because, like, in a loss, because Milwaukee needed to win out and Philly lost.
No,
Maybe it
Philly
was. I
Philly
think.
won. They won the first game of the series to clinch. They won
Okay,
3-0, I think was the final score. And then they had the double hangover lineup the
that's
last two
right.
games
That's
of the
right. That's
regular
right.
season.
Yeah.
Verlander struck out a ton of guys. Valdez struck out like the Astros threw Verlander and Valdez because they knew they were going to be off. So those guys dominated like glorified quad A lineups for the Phillies. So nothing you can glean there. Kind of feels a little bit team of destiny again from the NL East for the Astros. However,
Third year
the
and
Phillies were
four.
just 9 games over 500 in the final 3 months of the season in October. They were 11-14 in September. So unlike the Braves last year and the Nationals 2 years ago, this wasn't a team that just had a bad couple of months and then got hot. Like the Phillies got hot out of nowhere, which is fascinating. What are your expectations? I know you were eyeing some MVP odds. You don't have an MVP pick right now, but what are your expectations? If you were going to pick an MVP, who do you like? Tell me what you think of the World Series.
Might be the easy way out, but I think if I'm going to pick an MVP, I'd grab one on each side. I'd probably lean towards Bryce Harper on the Phillies, just because I think the only way they win this series is if he is their best player, because he is their best player. Maybe one of him or Schwarber. I didn't check the odds. I'm sure they have fairly similar odds, but I would probably try grabbing one of those two. Like Altuve would have been my guy to take a look for, but like, man, he's got the shortest odds and he's got one hit in the entire, no pun intended with the shortest odds there, but he's got sorry, I had to take a shot there. But I mean, he's had a terrible playoffs. He's just got the one hit. I don't know. I'd probably look at like a Yordan Alvarez or something. I think there was some value on him. He wasn't really on that big name of the big wave, big first wave on the FanDuel board. He's a guy who can very clearly, like a Jorge Soler, while he's not going to give you like Soler last year, well, he's not going to give you much defensively. He's very easily a guy who can hit 3 or 4 home runs in a series, and if he does that and the Astros win, he's probably your MVP. So I'm just leaning towards left-handed power bats, I guess, is my World Series MVP leans.
So you obviously want to price shop this stuff. But I just brought up DraftKings because it was the easiest one, and I couldn't find them on FanDuel this morning. Alvarez and Harper are co-favorites at DraftKings for World Series MVP at plus 650. Then it's Verlander, Kyle Tucker for some reason. He must have.
Yeah, I saw that. Why is he there?
I don't know. Framber Valdez, Alex Bregman, and then Schwarber. I mean, to me,
Bregman and
it's
Schwarber aren't bad looks either. Bregman's been really good this postseason.
I think maybe if you're looking for one guy on each team, I'm really not sure on the Astros. Maybe it's you take longer shots with Gurriel at 30-1. Maybe I think if you take an Philly, I'd just go Hoskins because I like longer shots. Like basically,
what was Schwarber's number?
Schwarber's number was 1,300, which isn't bad either.
Okay, I think I like that.
Yeah, I mean, so in the playoffs so far, Pena, Bregman, Gurriel, McCormick, and Alvarez all have over 880 OPS in the playoffs right now. For the Phillies, it's really, like you said, it's been Schwarber. Harper is super saiyan right now, and then Hoskins. And those three guys, Real Muto is the only other guy in their lineup with an OPS above 700 in the playoffs. Like you said, it's one of those three guys. Maybe it's Harper. Maybe if there's a catastrophe on planet Earth over the course of the World Series, you bet Castellanos. But yeah, I mean, if I was going to go with, I'd probably go a little bit with the longer odds and take Hoskins to win there. Do you have who do you think's going to? Before I'm sure Friday you'll get into the games individually. Like Phillies plus 165, the Astros minus 190. Do you like the Phillies at 165? Like if you were going to bet it, what do you think?
We talked a lot about this a little bit before the show, looking at all the props they have. And I think I saw the Game 1 series prop. I would lean Houston Game 1. But I think Houston probably wins the World Series. But if I'm betting this and I want to find some value on it, Houston Game 1 Philly series at plus 510, I think it is probably the way I'd lean. And I'd probably try and hope that I get a little bit, I get Verlander, vintage Verlander in Game 1 and see him go out and kind of shove against the Phillies. But I think at the plus 510 number, I know Houston's been great, but Philly does have the team of destiny feel, and this seems like the best Houston team that we've seen of the 3 team of destiny NL East teams they've played. But I think the Game 1 Philly series just out of that value. I think it's the World Series. Anything can happen, and if Philly can run into have a good couple starts from Zach Wheeler, from Aaron Nola, I don't know Game 1, but get a couple good starts, hit a few home runs. You never know what happens when this series gets late. And I think that's my lean. I think that's the best value here at the plus 510 number with the Houston Game 1 Philly series. But yeah, I mean, probably if I'm doing that and then maybe an exact score of Houston 4-1 or Houston 4-2.
Yeah, if I was going to bet it, I'd probably just bet Astros game one, Astros series at +1 or -105 right now. The Phillies have the team of destiny thing, and they might just hit enough home runs to win this series. Like they've just been mashing the shit out of the ball the postseason so far, and maybe that just continues when they go to Citizens Bank Park for games 3, 4, and maybe 5. Like that's going to be an intense environment. However, if there's a team that knows how to deal with hostile road crowds, it's the Houston Astros. The Phillies have had
It's
two.
insane
Well,
how good
yeah,
they are on the road.
yeah.
I know
The
they're good at
Phillies have
home, but like they're unflappable on the
Yeah, I
road.
mean, they've been dealing with it for 4 years now, all the cheating stuff and all of that kind of stuff, and they're used to it. And Philly is going to be the most insane environment they played in. Like I was at Game 3 of the World Series in Atlanta last year. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. But Philly is just different. That said, Philly's had kind of two issues during the regular season. Their bullpen is just notoriously
It's not very good.
unreliable, and their defense is particularly bad. They were 25th in the MLB in defensive runs saved this year, but their bullpen's been pretty good in the postseason. A 3.19 bullpen ERA. The Astros bullpen ERA in the postseason is a 0.82, and they had the best bullpen ERA in the regular season. The Astros did, so their bullpen has elevated its level of play in the postseason, but it was very good all year, and the Phillies wasn't. Man, those two pitching matchups are going to be awesome to start this series, but it kind of feels like these are going to be two teams that know how to get into bullpens, and if that happens, it's a massive edge to the Astros.
Yeah.
So like head says bet the Astros, heart says don't mess with the team of destiny thing. So I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, I think honestly, just grabbing a couple long shot odds, whether that's World Series MVP, whether it's an exact series price, and just trying to have some fun with it, is probably the way to go. And then just bet game by game because this series is going to be really, really hard to predict.
Yeah, if there was like a storybook ending kind of thing available to the Astros, which there isn't because they're cheaters, like Trey Mancini having somehow playing and having the series of his life at 70 to
Mhm.
1, but like no, like Castellanos is 40 to 1. Chas McCormick is 50 to 1. He's been hitting the hell out of the ball in the
He
postseason,
has
but it's
been.
also his like first World Series, really. Like I don't know. I'm just looking forward to it and probably not actually watching it because I don't want either team to win. Nevertheless, we move on. We are both college football guys. You can listen to us break down what happened this past week in college football at 2 p.m. today on the same YouTube channel on the Blogger Bowl. And you can hear me complain about Texas football, which nobody wants to listen to. But we will talk about, we will spin it forward here and talk about some bets for the weekend. I will let you go first because my university, the University of Texas, is on a bye week. However, your fandom is Notre Dame. They are playing this weekend and they are on your card already. You have two picks. Take us through them.
Yeah, first I can start with Notre Dame. I really like the under 47.5 there against Syracuse. Syracuse is a team that likes to run the football. I know they threw 26 times against Clemson, but that's more than they usually throw. They're a team that's going to try to run the ball, especially at home. I think try and just kind of keep that game at their pace. That's a weird place to go and play. Notre Dame also a team that is not by any means very dynamic offensively. They are going to try to run the ball, and then they're going to try to find Michael Mayer in play action. That's just kind of what they do. Drew Pine, after a couple pretty good games against Carolina and BYU, has really kind of come back to not quite the Cal Marshall quarterback that we saw, but kind of somewhere in the middle there. So I think both teams are really going to try and run the football, hang on to possession, and keep this a low scoring kind of ground and pound type football game. And I think close to 50 points for me is a little bit too much. And oddly enough, like Syracuse is a 3-point favorite now, which they should be. I think this opened up at Notre Dame like -2, which made absolutely no sense to me. I believe I saw that somewhere on Saturday, unless somebody gave me some wrong information. I am almost positive that's what I heard or saw. Thought that was very strange, but I think that line is right about where it should be. Not going to touch it because as bad as Notre Dame has been against bad teams so far this year, they've kind of been good against good teams, or at least played well enough and have found themselves in all of those games. So I'm not really going to touch that line, but I do like the under. And then I think I'm getting to the point where I'm just going to kind of start blindly betting Wake Forest every week because I think they're just keep being underrated. I think they're a very good football team. I think Louisville is very average, and Wake Forest has been able to go on the road. They've been at home. They've been able to do whatever they want offensively against whoever they want. Sam Hartman will never get Heisman votes or be there, but he's having that type of a good year. They're coming off a blowout win against Boston College. He balled out against Clemson, played really well at Florida State. Like I said, doesn't matter if he's home or on the road. I know Malik Cunningham and Louisville are good, but they've been really he's good, I should say. Louisville's not all that good. They've had a very up and down season. So has Malik Cunningham, and Wake Forest has just kind of been the model of consistency going into whoever they play. and just kind of like, we're going to put up 30 plus points, and I don't think you can keep up with us. And I think that's kind of what happens on the road. So I like Wake Forest. I think that's kind of my steady pick throughout the rest of the season. I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, Dave Clawson, he's been a little bit salty all year because people disrespect Wake Forest and said after their game the other day, quote, "I'm sure when all of our 35-year-old 15th year players graduate next year, we'll come crashing back down to earth like everyone says we will." The Syracuse Notre Dame one, I like that pick a lot. Syracuse, their defense has actually been really good this year, and they did a good job of forcing turnovers against Clemson. Their offense a little shaky in a step up in competition. I have 2 picks on my card already, and these I'm betting on 2 teams I absolutely detest, but nevertheless, you have to make the picks when you see them, and you cannot
You hate
bet,
USC?
well, I don't like Lincoln Riley.
Fair enough.
But I am taking them minus 15 at Arizona. Arizona has been a little bit friskier than people have thought they might be under Jed Fish, but the problem for them is they cannot play defense even a little bit. They're 126 in the country in EPA per play defense and last in the Power 5 by a good margin in opponent adjusted defensive efficiency. USC is going to be angry now, having 2 weeks to prepare for this game, coming off the loss to Utah. And Lincoln Riley is not the kind of coach who goes easy on people. He is going to want to put points up in this game. The bye week was very well timed for USC. Jordan Addison is listed as day-to-day. He left the Utah game with a knee injury and appears to have missed any serious injury there. And he, like I said, listed as day-to-day. So USC is going to score. They're going to score a lot in this game. I don't think Arizona's going to be able to keep up. And USC is really good at forcing turnovers as well. So this just feels like a bad spot for Arizona. And the other one is not so much that I believe in Brent Venables and Oklahoma. It's more that I do not believe in Matt Campbell and the Iowa State Cyclones. This is from our friend Chris Felica. Matt Campbell's Iowa State teams are 5-15 straight up in games where Iowa State is between a 3.5 point underdog and a 3.5 point favorite. So if the margin is expected to be close, 3.5 points on either side, he is 5-15 at Iowa State. Iowa State has lost 8 of its last 9 one-score games. Now, their offense showed some life in the passing game against a Texas passing defense that's been kind of up and down this year, and we know Oklahoma's defense has not been good at all this year, but with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, they're a different team, and until a Matt Campbell team shows that they can win a close game, even though this game's at home, like, I'm just not going to believe that they're going to do it until they show me. So, at minus 110 for a money line, like it's 1.5 is the spread. You can lay that too, but I just might as well just take the money line here and not worry about a weird 1 point game.
How many times have we talked about it on the Blogger Bowl this year where Matt Campbell's record as was it -3 to +3, whether minus the range of -3 to +3, his record against the spread is just brutal in his tenure at Iowa State. So I like that look. And I think the way Dylan Gabriel's playing, and I guess played since he's come back from that injury, and the way Oklahoma looks with him, that's going to be a tough offense for Iowa State to keep up with, even with that secondary having some holes. And we saw them at least figure it out to an extent against Kansas and play better. And I think Kansas gives you a better offensive look than Iowa State does, even with the backup quarterback in. So I like that look a lot with Oklahoma.
And our good friend Leg Show Magazine in the chat likes Washington State plus 8.5 at home against Utah on Thursday. Yeah, that is an interesting game. Obviously not a short week because both teams were off this past week, but making the road trip to Pullman is a tough ask on a Thursday night, regardless of how much rest you've had. For a Utah team coming off of a big win, and 8.5 points is a lot. So, he also says he loves the under in the Iowa State game. He says their games with small spreads tend to go under. Also a good look there as well. So shout out to Leg Show, one of our consistent
I can't take an Oklahoma under. It might be a good look. I just can't bring myself to take an Oklahoma under.
Iowa State just likes to muck games up. They're awful to watch. I talked about it on the Blogger Bowl. They're basically more efficient Iowa. Yeah. If you want to hear me rant about Iowa, tune into the Blogger Bowl at 2:00 Eastern on this same channel. Let's wrap up the show with some hockey. I have said in my head, looking at your picks here, I have said in my head I might watch my first NHL game of the season tonight, and it involves one of the games on your list. And the other one, I know where you're going with it, and I love it, and I will let you explain it, but take us through your hockey picks for the evening.
We got a good one early in Madison Square Garden. Avalanche Rangers. We have the last year's Stanley Cup champions going up against last year's Eastern Conference finalists in New York. We gave Tampa all they can handle in 6 games. It's a little bit of a contrarian play. Both teams can score. Both teams have gotten off to a little bit of a slow start defensively, I should say, this year. But both teams coming off a couple days off. I think Colorado last played on the 22nd. Rangers played on the 23rd. So not back-to-back for either of them. You have both starting goalies tonight. It's Igor Shesterkin, who was last year's Vezina Trophy winner for the Rangers. Really darn good goalie. Going up against his backup in Alexander Georgiev, who was traded to Colorado in the offseason. He's kind of their guy now. And he's been off to a pretty good start this year. He's got a goals against the 2.7. Actually, if you look at both of their numbers, him and Shesterkin, they're pretty identical. I think they're both like one's 2.75 goals against, one's 2.76. Both goalies are 3-0-1. And I think in this game, you see a little bit more of it's way too early to call it a playoff type game, but a bigger game atmosphere, a more playoff style of game, because I think you have two teams that see themselves as Stanley Cup contenders. And I think this one just gets a little bit more tightly contested. I think 6.5 is a lot. 6.5 is a lot of goals. Then again, no amount of goals is too much for the Colorado Avalanche, so I shouldn't necessarily say that. But I like both starters tonight. Both starters in net for both teams. I think this is a contrarian underlean with a little bit of value. And I want to pull up a quote here because I want one. Phil, if you don't know, the American winger, he played for Boston. He played for Toronto. He won a few cups with Pittsburgh. He's been bouncing around a few teams the last few years. He is a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, and he plays in his 990th consecutive game tonight. That will break the all-time NHL Ironman record, which is pretty insane because we see, the 1,000 game mark is a pretty big milestone for any NHL player. He's about to do that 1,000. He's 10 games away from doing that 1,000 consecutively. But Phil is also he's a fun-loving guy. I don't want to call him quite the John Daly of hockey, but he's a fun-loving guy. He doesn't have the greatest hockey player physique. He's not cut from marble or anything like that. And I took him to score plus 440. What were we saying, Dan?
He's a dad bod all-star.
Yeah, he's a dad bod. There you go. Took him to score tonight plus 440 because not only is he going to break the NHL Ironman record tonight, he's also sitting on 399 goals. So I just think in a world of, just karma, things happening for a reason, things lining up, I think he scores a goal in his Ironman streak-setting game. But I was scrolling through Twitter this morning, and Sportsnet Canada had a Phil Kessel article. And there's a quote from Blake Wheeler, who was Blake Wheeler's a Winnipeg Jet. He was his teammate in the 2014 Olympics in Sochi. And this was a quote directly from him. I remember walking into his room in Olympic Village in 2014, and the amount of candy wrappers stacked up next to his bed, I think that's what he brought to Sochi. For Phil, it was like, his favorite candies. Sour Patch Kids were Kessel's number one, and I don't know if it still holds true, but for the longest time, he never drank water. He only drank 2 Blue Powerade. He didn't like the taste of water. So that is the guy who is going to set your all-time NHL Ironman record in a game where and rightfully so, we talk about these players in the playoffs who are machines, who play through all this, who are in the best shape of their lives. Dad bod Phil Kessel, who brings Sour Patch Kids and Blue Powerade with him to Sochi for the Olympics, is about to be your NHL Ironman, and I love it. I think it's awesome. I love Phil Kessel. He's a great hockey player. He's got a couple cups and was a huge part of those Penguins teams. And he's got a chance to score his 400th goal tonight. So let's take that. Plus 440, over 4-1 in game 990 to be goal number 400. Let's do it. Let's ride with Phil the thrill.
I love it. What team do you most associate Phil Kessel with?
It's still probably the Penguins, but it's close with that and the Leafs because the Leafs was such a interesting they never got past the first round, but he was such a big part of them. And I feel like that's when he became this, because of Toronto media, that's kind of when he became this, I don't even want to call it controversial figure, but polarizing figure, because the Toronto media never really liked him. I think because he wasn't, your traditional, Jonathan Taves looking hockey player who was all business and serious and, really cared about his diet. He was just a guy who went out and played hockey and was really good. But that's where he became very polarizing because I think he got magnified in that Toronto media. So if you told me Toronto or you told me Pittsburgh, I wouldn't tell you were wrong.
Yeah, I think of Pittsburgh. I would never root for the Penguins because I think that Sidney Crosby's kind of lame. But anytime you can relate anything in professional sports to professional wrestling, I'm all for it. And the HBK line was just absolutely
it was fantastic.
One of the years they won the cup with him, Hagelin, Bonino, and Kessel. So I think the Penguins and the hot dog. What's the hot like?
The hot dog thing was that was like a made up story that the media just took and ran. I think it was honestly something that the Toronto media somebody tried to trick the Toronto media with and see if they run with it, and they ran with it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I don't doubt that Phil Kessel enjoys himself a hot dog.
No, I thought it was because he put hot dogs in the Stanley Cup though.
I think that was I think he was
yeah.
taking a shot at the Toronto media there.
Which, I mean, come on, man. Like,
I love it.
That can't love
Toronto.
that.
The Toronto media and the fan base, for the most part, treated him very unfairly because he was a very good player for them, and they just didn't get the job done. But like, here we are. He's been gone for a long time, and they're still not getting the job done. So
they're never going to get the job done.
The Toronto to lose in exactly 7 games last year was maybe my favorite bet of all time. I took that right at the beginning of the playoffs, and they were playing Tampa. Tampa was down 3-2, and I was like, no chance I'm hedging here. No chance. Toronto's losing this series in 7.
If you want to hear about my favorite bet of all time, tune into the Blogger Ball today at 2 p.m. Eastern.
That's a tease.
On this same YouTube channel where I will legitimately talk about my favorite, I think the favorite bet I've ever been involved in my life. I will talk about that at 2 p.m. Go check out YouTube, go to our YouTube channel and check out the BetSperts Golf Show with Andy and Ryan Noonan as they break down the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. They should probably be
the 5th major
done by now. If they're not done by now, I cannot imagine they went more than 45 minutes on that tournament. Check out the deep dive tomorrow night. Check out all of the replays of everything that we do, and then
like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That makes Andy happy.
Go like and subscribe and like our YouTube Shorts. We're now a YouTube Shorts channel too. We're trying some things out, so we appreciate your support there. Those are doing well the first couple of days. I'm running out of ideas, but we'll figure it out from there. And then Andy and Noops will be back tomorrow. No Win Total Wednesday, but they will have a bevy of bets for you. So for Matt, I'm Dan, and they will talk to you guys tomorrow.